There are plenty of pointless fights in MMA. Royce Gracie versus Matt Hughes, CM Punk versus Mickey Gall, Chael Sonnen versus, well, anyone with submission skills. But the only thing worse than a pointless fight is a pointless rematch. This is a list of rematches that were meaningless, unnecessary, or just fights that no one cared about in the first place. These are some of the most pointless rematches in MMA. Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz 3. The third fight between Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz was possibly the most pointless and predictable fight in the history of rematches. This was the third fight between the pair, with Chuck winning the two previous fights easily. But after being brutally knocked out in his last 3 fights, and an 8-year hiatus from fighting, not even Chuck's longtime trainer and coach wanted anything to do with this fight.
This is a travesty. It was a travesty.
Chuck walked into the ring like a geriatric on his way to bingo. Fans knew Chuck was gonna get knocked out once again. But you know what? Sometimes a fighter can surprise you and overcome the odds, which is exactly what happened when Matt Serra beat GSP back in 2007. But in this fight, Chuck got knocked out again. When you're getting knocked out by the likes of Tito Ortiz, it's probably time to hang up the gloves. This time, for good.
Do either one of you two guys want to see Chuck Liddell in the cage fighting again?
No, not at all.
Fedor Emelianenko versus Tuyoshi Kosaka 2. Fedor Emelianenko versus Tuyoshi Kosaka's rematch was a foregone conclusion when they fought for a second time at Pride in 2005.
Just raining down those blows lefts and rights.
TK hit the lotto when he was declared the winner after not beating Fedor at Rings 2000. Kosaka hit Fedor with an illegal elbow, halting the fight due to a bad cut on Fedor's head. But since it was a tournament, a winner had to be declared so someone could move up the bracket. So Kosaka was declared the victor. But the two rematched years later. This time, Fedor had won his last 17 fights in a row and beat the likes of Nogueira, a chemically enhanced Mark Coleman, Kevin Randleman, and many more. Meanwhile, Kosaka had beat a couple of guys and a dude. The rematch wasn't made because it was supposed to be a competitive fight, but more so Fedor could get revenge for the only loss on his record at the time.
Will it be revenge for Emelianenko, or will TK Kosaka pull off one of the biggest upsets in MMA history?
Fedor beat Kosaka like a pimp beating his hoe and completely destroyed the Japanese fighter, with the doctors calling an end to the fight after the first round.
And it's over. The fight has been stopped. Fedor Emelianenko records the victory.
Any talks of a third fight between the two were beaten out of TK within a few minutes into the first round, and they haven't fought since. Ken Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz and Royce Gracie. These days, almost every Ken Shamrock fight is pointless. But as far as rematches go, he is the king of the pointless rematch.
What? And wait, are underway. Let's get it on. Let's do it. Here we go. Here we go.
Tito Ortiz has always been Shamrock's rival, after an altercation when Tito beat one of his teammates.
Ken Shamrock very upset with the disrespect shown towards the Lion's Den corner.
Ken first fought Tito at UFC 40 and was totally dominated and beaten via corner stoppage.
It's over! It's over! They're going to stop the fight!
Given that Shamrock was utterly outclassed in every aspect of the fight, finding a reason for a rematch was a difficult task. So the only selling point the rematch had was fake animosity combined with horrible trash talk.
I'm going to beat you into the living death.
Marshmallow boy.
Little bench monkey.
It's like one big kindergarten in here.
Things were different in the rematch. Instead of lasting 3 rounds against Tito, Ken only lasted 1. And not just 1 round, but 1 minute.
And it is all over.
As if things couldn't get more definitive as far as fighting goes, the UFC, seeing nothing but dollar signs, put on another fight between the two, even after Ken was completely obliterated in both fights prior.
His face is a mess.
In their third and final fight, Shamrock did twice as good as he did in the last fight and lasted 2 minutes before being predictably knocked out.
It is all over. Tito Ortiz dominates Ken Shamrock for a third time.
But Tito Ortiz wasn't Shamrock's only pointless rematch. His third fight against Royce Gracie was just as pointless as Ken's last two fights against Tito. Shamrock was knocked out in the first round by the jiu-jitsu fighter,
and Royce Gracie ends the fight with strikes,
and was Gracie's first and only win via KO. Even while being pumped full of steroids and drugs, Ken still couldn't take a shot from a 50-year-old grappler. After losing the fight, Ken did what he always does. Yelled,
I don't know what he's yelling about,
complained,
he did it on purpose,
and failed his drug test. Tim Sylvia versus Andre Arlovski 3 and 4. Tim Sylvia and Andre Arlovski have fought each other 4 times. While the first 2 fights were exciting and over pretty quick, the third fight was difficult to get through, even for seasoned MMA fans. Both fighters seemed reluctant to engage, and not much happened in the 25-minute bout. A few jabs here and there, a goofy spinning back kick from Sylvia, and a lot of referee warnings for the lack of action.
Come on, get going, let's go, come on. Gotta throw, gotta go, come on. You gotta throw, you're gonna leave it to a judge, come on. Stop it right there, stop it right there. Let's give it
All right, gotta keep busy.
After everyone woke up from their power nap, Sylvia's hand was raised, with Arlovski losing to Tim once again. But it didn't end there. After leaving the UFC, putting on a few hundred more pounds, and beating Patrick Barentine, Vince Lucero, and Randy Smith, whoever those guys are, Sylvia took on Arlovski for a 4th time. With Andre still in shape and Sylvia possibly needing diabetes treatment, it's hard to believe this fight was even sanctioned. While it's true there's no love lost between the two, especially after Sylvia was with Andre's ex-girlfriend, prompting Arlovski to ask the ever-philosophical question,
Team House taste my beat, okay?
All right.
Other than that, there wasn't much animosity between the two. Andre knocked Sylvia out early in the second round with a kick to his big head. But since the rule set was so convoluted and confusing, with kicks to a downed opponent only being legal if you ask the referee for permission first,
he kicked him before he signaled open attack, so that's a foul.
The fight ended up being a no contest, which made the whole thing pretty pointless. But if we're lucky, maybe Bellator will put on a 5th fight between the two in about 15 years or so.
Terror, fear, exhilaration.
Bellator MMA live on Spike.
And a few honorable mentions. After Frankie Edgar beat BJ Penn twice in a row, many assumed BJ didn't stand much of a chance in the third fight. They were right.
Frankie Edgar finishes BJ Penn 3-0 for Edgar.
Heath Herring was defeated twice by Antonio Nogueira, but for some reason the UFC made them fight for a 3rd time. Spoiler alert, Nogueira won again. After getting finished twice by Vanderlei Silva, Pride thought it was a good idea to put on a 3rd fight against Sakuraba, thinking things would be different. They were not. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check out the Patreon link in the description if you want to help support the channel.